Most weight loss plans are one size fits all, not taking into account each person's individual needs. Noom, on the other hand, is built for your psychology and your biology, meeting you where you are. Noom Weight uses psychology, and that's why they say losing weight starts with your brain. But it also takes into account your unique biological factors, which also affect weight loss success. The program helps you understand the science behind your eating choices and why you have cravings. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com.
Listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the year 2025. It feels weird to say that. Like I'm literally closing my eyes trying to picture me writing 2025 and it doesn't compute. But needless to say, we're here for another year of podcasts and talking to people who are interesting within this space of independent music, punk, hardcore, metal, indie rock, emo, whatever it is. I cast a wide net because truthfully, music is important of all shapes and sizes, the shape being specifically independent DIY stuff, because that's where we're all coming from. We've all been in small rooms with, 40 some odd people jumping on each other's heads or skanking or whatever it is that we're doing. It's very just increasingly important as I get older and hopefully a little bit wiser, why this thing resonates with me on a very deep, deep level. This week, I'm doing something a little bit different because our best of 2024 episode is always super fun, highly trafficked, and I appreciate all of you for, paying attention to this episode year after year. But there's a lot of stuff that falls off the list that is still really good and should be highlighted. And I've toyed around with a few different ideas and have done a few different iterations of this. Like back when I had a email list, I would email a lot of this stuff out. But I decided to have a longtime friend and previous guest of the show, Brian Audley. He is the guitarist for Incendiary and a well-known music head nerd like myself, where we, capture the lists of records that we enjoyed, and we think often about why we enjoy music, how we enjoy music, all that sort of stuff. So Brian, I thought, was a perfect postscript, as it were, to the Best of 2024 episode, where him and I talk about the stuff that wasn't on our sort of top 10 list. I gave him a little bit of a caveat because obviously he didn't share his, top 10 records of 2024. So, he peppered some of those in, but he took a very cool and interesting approach where he looked at live records, he looked at reissues, a lot of cool stuff. So anyways, that's what we're doing. That's a little bit different this week. So New Year's Day, hopefully your resolutions will come true and all the platitudes that people say as they're turning a calendar and act like they have their stuff together. Because truthfully, none of us have our stuff together. We're all just stabbing in the dark, trying our best to put one foot in front of the other. I know myself, I'm going through a lot right now in regards to family issues, stuff that I'm keeping private for reasons, I obviously don't need to tell you because it's private. But as an open book, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, everything's fine in my life, when truthfully it's not. And I'm doing my best. And ultimately, music is what truly carries me through in so many respects, from joys to sadnesses to trauma to everything. Music is something that I just lean on to, and it's that much more meaningful when we're listening to it in highly volatile environments. So anyways, without dowering your 2025, I'm excited to bring you this chat with Brian Audley from Incendiary, talking about the best of the rest of 2024, and hope your new year is off to a bang. You can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Also leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page. Same thing for Spotify, except you just need to leave a rating. All of those things. Like if you've been listening to this show for, a couple years, you know that I'm going to ask that. So please just do it. Take the 30 seconds. it takes you out of your day to do that. And then, you'll still you'll just fast forward through this part now and you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I did that. I don't even need to listen to Ray. So anyways, let's talk to Brian on our fun best of the rest of 2024.
Brian, I'm obviously excited to have this discussion with you because, it takes a certain level of nerdery to keep up with one another. And I know that you're the man for the job.
Yes, I am up there with the nerdery on the year-end list. Ray, like I've told you and Jeremy, I love the best of episode that you guys do. I'm one of the people that that look forward to it every year. I'm not one of the people that will message you asking when it's going to come out. I heard that on the last episode. That seemed pretty extreme, but I love what you guys do, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Yes, well, thank you. Yeah, it's and it's funny because I think these year-end lists, like while they go in and out of relevance, it's one of those things where when you start to put different inputs in from like, okay, here's like, your whatever Rolling Stones and Pitchforks, and then you go a next level deep of like, Decibel Magazine or whatever. And then you start to piece together what you actually care about. But it's like, it's important to have all these inputs, but then ultimately you're just like, dude, I'm going to put the records that I really like. Like, I'm not going to have that outside influence on me.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's just like a cool way to talk about music and share what you're into with people. People who have similar tastes. Maybe you kind of value their lists more than others, and it'll put you onto some new stuff that you might have missed throughout the year. So, any time when music is kind of like the topic of conversation in the larger zeitgeist, it's cool. Even for all the things we could complain about with Spotify Wrapped, it's a cool day where everybody's talking about music is the way I look at it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Totally. Well, this episode obviously is focusing on, records that maybe fell outside of the parameters of a typical top 10, but at the same time, you obviously have your own top 10 list. So we're just going to kind of go through, records, EPs, things that we did enjoy, but maybe wasn't the, number one with a bullet, so to speak. So, I'm excited to hear what you're bringing to the table. And I think we just bounce back and forth and, comment on, if we've checked the stuff out, if we like it, or if it sucks and your whole list is terrible, Brian.
Yeah, I'm open to that too. When you kind of explain the format, I went in through the lens of like, what are things that came out last year that wasn't like a proper LP of new material that I was into. So, EPs, some reissues that came out last year, maybe a live record or two. That was the type of stuff or the lens I went into this through.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, start us off, man. Give me a record or EP or something you want to highlight.
Yeah, sure. So this EP is actually the only release that overlapped with my, personal little top 10 list from 2024. It's the Final Resting Place EP called Prelude to Extinction. Came out on Days Records, I believe. Are you familiar with this band at all?
I am. Yeah. It's funny because I actually listened to it again and I'm sure you do this, where you hear about something, you check it out, you give it kind of the once over, and then you maybe make a decision, be like, I don't know if I need to listen to this again, or like, it's not for me or whatever. So I did that initially, and then I didn't feel like it was for me because I didn't like the vocals. And then I listened to it again, I think last week, and I was like, yeah, it's still not for me. Like, I don't know. There's something about the real low guttural vocals. It has to be in a certain space for me, and I wasn't. The music was cool, but it just didn't vibe with the vocals.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you weren't into this one. But yeah, dude, I love it. I mean, it's got members of Sanction and Simulacra, I believe, and I just I've always liked the way that the kids in those bands have written heavy music. So whenever they do something, I usually pay attention. And this EP last year was awesome. It kind of reminds me of a very specific sliver of like Nassau County meets Queens, New York, like slam hardcore. And even down to the production, it's like very authentic, very slimmed down, very brutal. And I was feeling this all year round.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I agree that it's so cool when, and I know that we've seen it not only with our peers, but then the generation younger than us, that it's like kids continue to play in 500 bands.
Yep.
And it's just, it's so cool to see that.
Yeah, yeah. I just always I feel like anytime a piece of like new heavy music catches my ear, it's always, or it has been, people that are involved in these kind of cohorts of bands. So I think they're keeping that going. I'm excited to see what this band does next.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Well, I wanted to highlight this is a long running band and a record that it came out. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it definitely came out in the first half of the year, I feel, or maybe the summer, and just didn't have the lasting power for me, but the record's still incredible. I don't know if you like that band Envy from Japan. They released a record called Unoya, I think it is. They're a band. They've existed for 25 plus years. Like, definitely were a part of the whole like level playing screamo vibe. Have toured. I think they toured over here in the States. Yeah, I know they did because I've seen them before, but they toured with like Touche Amore back in the day, like early 10s, I guess you'll say. Mm-hmm. But post rock, emotional hardcore stuff. But they sing all in Japanese, and it's like I don't know, they're just a band that continues to boggle my mind because they're ostensibly, I think, probably in their 50s and are like just crushing it. I know. Yeah. They're like, old humans, like as far as our, cultural, music scene is concerned.
That's inspiring, as the totality of my band entered their 40s in 2024. Hearing that these guys are in their 50s and still rock is pretty inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say this is their like 8th or 9th full length. And it's like they've done, a number of splits. Like they did a split with Thursday.
Yes, that's where I knew this from.
Just a band. Yeah. They definitely, that's where I think they came on a lot of people's radars, where it's like, oh, this band needs to be heard by more people here in the States. I mean, they put out all their records on Temporary Residence, home of Explosions in the Sky and stuff like that. So it's, it's just inspiring because the band definitely shouldn't, I guess be resting on their laurels, so to speak, but they continue to just add layers of intricacy to their music where it's just like, oh, this is, wow, like you're really catchy, or, you're singing more as opposed to screaming, or it's just really cool. So
yeah,
love the Envy record.
Cool. I'll have to check that one out. Yeah. Like you said, like the Thursday split, I think is where this band got put on my radar. And I think they did a split with Jesu too, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's okay. That's the only material of theirs I'm familiar with. So I'll have to do some catching up.
Yeah, the split stuff has always been cool, but I think it really clicks when you can sink your teeth into more than one song, or more than, one or two songs, because it just feels like a more holistic record than, just a one or two song split or whatever. So
yeah, what
else you got in your list? Okay, well, the record I would say that I think captured a lot of people's attention from Envy is a Dead Sinking Story that came out on Level Plane, but then Temporary Residence re-released it. So yeah, that record is like that probably came out 2008 or 2009, but definitely was like they could have released it on Hydra Head, and it would have been totally comfortable. Not like technically as far as like, like botch and, that sort of stuff, but they have like the ISIS elements as well. But, that's a really, really good record.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'll have some homework then. Am I good to move on?
Yeah, exactly. Please do.
Okay. Next one is another true EP from Bayway from Jersey. It's called Bayway Takes Manhattan, despite being from Jersey. But this band I got put onto over the last few years from my buddy Pat, who does RTF Records out of Jersey, and it's just like a very, very authentic sounding. I'm going to choose my words carefully here. Like, if you like E-Town Concrete, if you like Gridiron currently, that type of, call it like hip hop influenced hardcore, it's so good, man. It's like it's like exactly, it's just authentic is the only word I could say. Like it's from North Jersey. It sounds like it's from North Jersey. It has the vibe. The production again is like spot on with like how stuff from that era and area sounds, and it's just fun. Like we played with these guys in North Carolina actually last year, and you know the show was cool, couple hundred person, bigger hardcore show fest type thing, and they played earlier in the day, and like the energy that their singer brought, like it was like he was playing to a fucking stadium. He just had the like frontman vibe and persona and like matching basketball jersey outfit. It was just so fun and like the total package. And yeah, anyway, they put out an EP this year called Bayway Takes Manhattan. I think it has one of their best songs called Currency. And if you like fun, bouncy, you know, I'm not going to say rap core, but like rap influenced hardcore. This is for you.
Sure.
It's super fun and I loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I listened to it, and I definitely, everything you speak about, it hit me and resonated in that sort of way where, if I am looking for something like that, and it is such I'm glad you articulated the, rap influenced hardcore, because I think especially us on the West Coast, like that's never really been a thing, it's always very much come from the tri-state area. But it's, that's a cool EP. I like that one.
Yeah. I was feeling it this year and wanted to give them some love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right,
well, on the I like our dualities because I like our dualities because it's like a little back and forth where you're picking this, rap influenced hardcore, and then I'm going to pick the Owen record.
Okay.
the
all
the
about
fall.
ballad.
Yeah. It is. The Falls of Sioux was his new record, and for those that aren't familiar with Owen, it's Mike Kinsella from Joan of Arc, American Football, like Captain Jazz, every cool band that is now obviously popular on TikTok or Tumblr previously. This is his I want to say this is his fifth full length. And kind of similar to Envy, where he, grown ass human being, kids, he has a, ex-wife, like he's gone through a lot of different life changes over the past 3 to 5 years that I think have really been encapsulated in this particular record in ways that, it feels like, I'm not going to compare it sonically to like a Death Cab for Cutie translaticism, but it has that same sort of like lived experience where it's like, oh, that this person went through something and they're able to express it musically. And so, this record was outstanding. And I really I pretty much enjoy everything Mike does, but this record in particular was like, oh, dude, you're killing it.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check this one out. I am a fan of Mike's work in a lot of ways, and I always just like when people have like different projects that different sounds and songs are more appropriate for. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, this is an Owen song, or this is an American Football song, and like it's interesting to me when people have those different buckets and projects to communicate through, like how they make those choices.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, where it's just like, it's no matter what at the core of it, you can identify the person, but there's just, like you said, just these different, avenues or alleyways to be able to explore. And it's like, oh yeah, this makes sense as an Owen song versus, like you said, an American Football song. So yeah. Well, what else you got next?
Okay. That's going to conclude the, Brian's beatdown corner. And we're going to get a lot more. We're going to get a little more pedestrian perhaps, and definitely a little softer here. But the next one I'll go with is Hotline TNT put out a record called Trilogy, which what I understand, it's a compilation of a bunch of prior release singles and standalone EPs and stuff like that. It's kind of like a collection. So I thought that was a good candidate for this exercise. But Hotline TNT put out one of my favorite records last year with Cartwheel. So having, more material, kind of having the signal boosted on some of their old material this year is cool, and having it in all in one spot to listen to was very convenient. And, since I liked their last EP or LP Cartwheel so much, it was cool listening to the old shit through that lens and kind of hearing the growth from where it started to where it went.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really need to give this band more attention in regards to like listening to more of their music, because I know like they're I'm going to compare them to a band like Fucked Up, where it's like they play aggressive-ish type of music, but also not really. Like, you know, I mean, Fucked Up is obviously a little more, you know, punk and hardcore influenced, obviously, but are co-signed by, you know, the indie rock community. Like, because it didn't, Hotline TNT, they signed a Third Man, right?
Yeah, Cartwheel came out on Third Man.
Yeah, so it's like it's that, you know, sort of, I mean, Hotline TNT isn't heavy, but like obviously are, you know, aggressive in some rights. But I just always put them in that category where it's like, oh, it's the, you know, sort of aggressive band that like your average, you know, Coachella goer can like and be okay with.
Yeah, totally. And you know, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's almost more of like a one man like bedroom project recorded, and then they bring it to life live with you know, with a full band and live drums and all that. So again, it's cool hearing how like all this early stuff started, and then how, you know, the vision and the project kind of evolved into, you know, what's probably their biggest and best statement with Cartwheel last year. So yeah, it's cool for those that haven't heard it. It's very, very loud, kind of like fuzzed out. Man, I don't know, almost like Teenage Fan Club at times, with kind of like, I don't know, for lack of a better comparison, maybe like Alex G production. Like there's kind of a lot going on in the production, but it's delivered like extremely loud and like blown out and washy, with like very kind of memorable poppy hooks and choruses and stuff. It's really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that comparison, like the blown out nature, where it's like, I also, I don't know why I put them in the same category as like a Spiritual Cramp. Spiritual Cramp is obviously, you know, a little more, I think they've played shows together too, but yeah, that's cool. I need to listen to it more.
Yeah, it's got it made the list, so check it out.
New year, same awesome sponsor of Rockabilly.com, and their promo code 100 words or less gets you 10% off their whole order. They have so many cool things that you could possibly get into, from like, you know, backpacks and thermoses and all the, you know, back to school items, because what is cooler than showing up to school after winter break and being like, yo, I got a Metallica backpack. How about that? But they do really cool stuff. Like, how about a t-shirt grab bag for $20? $20. They ship you officially licensed merch in your size, and it's a grab bag, so you don't know what you're going to get, but you are going to get cool stuff overall. Because I don't care what you're into, whether you're into like Slipknot, Green Day, Eminem, Black Sabbath, Beatles, Alice in Chains, all of this stuff you can find on Rockabilly.com. It's all officially licensed, ships to you quickly from the Midwest here in the United States of America. Independently owned and operated company for over 35 years. They are just in it to win it. And they've also recently launched a toy company that's an auxiliary company. I'm not going to belabor the point in regards to that, but know that you're supporting cool, creative people with cool, creative ideas. So Rockabilly.com, use the promo code 100 words or less for 10% off your entire order, and have fun shopping.
My next record is the Gatecreeper record, that Dark Superstition that
nice.
came out this year. Gatecreeper has been a great band, and I think that you know, what Chase has done to be able to you know, just make the band like what they are, not only visually but vocally. I think and I'm sure you're going to appreciate this call out, but to me, he always has sounded like a version, or a more updated version, of Mike Oleander from you know, Endeavor, Burnt by the Sun, and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, I don't disagree.
Dude, I know it came to me one day as I was listening to, it wasn't this full length, but it was the last EP where I started to notice it. And then I texted Chase and I was like, listen, I know this is maybe a little weird, but like, you sound like Michael Hitter. And he's like, dude, that's exactly what I'm going for. I'm like, that's great. I was like, well, it's like mission accomplished, man. I'm like, your vocals are just, cause I think what makes it so cool is you have this, you know, really awesome, you know, death metal influenced, I just death metal, but obviously it has a groove and like there's everything that, you know, all of the bands that do that really well. But I think Gatecreeper puts this additional influence that isn't really, you know, common amongst bands of that genre. But yeah, I love the record, and it's very listenable, you know, like you can just dip into a few songs and be like, oh yeah, like I just finished the whole record and I didn't even mean to.
Yeah, they're such a good band, and I agree with everything you said. I don't know if it was last year or the year before when they put out the what was it called? Something Reality, where it was like the side A was like all the fast grindy songs, then side B was like one long epic song.
Yes.
That was my favorite Gatecreeper release to date. And then this one, I feel like this was to me, it feels like this was like what Gatecreeper was supposed to be like the whole time, like the most like refined version of it, where they kind of knew what they were going for, dialed it in, took everything that they'd done before this and really kind of like, refined it to a point and delivered it pretty perfectly. So this was on my list too, actually. So I'm glad we're getting to talk about it here. But yeah, man, I agree with everything. They're just like the total package, visually, sonically, and like they did the thing that's very hard, I think, for hardcore bands or bands who come from hardcore to do, which is like genuinely win over and become accepted by the just regular ass metal community. Like they're just like they're over with like the regular ass metal crowd, you know?
It totally. And I for people like you and I that have paid it very close attention to bands that, you know, dip into both scenes, to your point, it's so hard to do that, where it's like, and I think the, you know, aesthetic and look and everything that Gatecreeper has made it easier for them to make that leap versus, you know, like if Incendiary put out a metal record, you guys would still be like, oh dude, you can't be in the metal scene. You guys are idiots.
Yeah. Brendan's vocals is never happening. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool when bands like actually break through and become accepted by that. And I think, if they hadn't already, Gatecreeper like 100% did that with this one. The other thing I was going to say about this one was like, when this came out, I remember seeing a lot of like chatter about how it was like more melodic and people thought it was like this big departure. But like, again, to me, it didn't really sound like that. Like it sounded like what they'd been doing, what they were kind of like striving for the whole time. And again, they just kind of like got the recipe down and really just kind of like sharpened it to a point. So I think it's the best version of Gatecreeper, and yeah, this record kicks ass.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that ticks an item off both of our lists. So what else do you have?
Okay. We're gonna get into reissue territory now.
Okay.
I was kind of surprised that this one didn't make any three of your guys' lists on the end of year episode, but maybe I'll double this together. But both of the Rival Schools reissues that came out last year through Run for Cover, Petals, which included some bonus tracks, and then Found, which was kind of like, I think, the quote unquote like lost record that had made the rounds on the internet for ages. I love this band. I love, a lot of what all the members have done, obviously. And it was cool to have these on vinyl finally. And not only just, for the tracks, but the bonus tracks, especially on Petals, was really cool. On I think it could be one of the best Rival School songs is that song, You Should Have Hung Out, which I think was kind of like the single they led off with this reissue. So yeah, I mean, Run for Cover did a great job of like bundling this together with amazing artwork and having like a really high value package with it. And I'm just glad to own these songs in vinyl.
Yeah, I think for me, Rival Schools, those records in particular, like I like those. It just doesn't. It never hit in the way that United by Fate did, and I think that I know. It never sprung to that same level. And I think maybe partially just because I know for myself personally, I saw Rival Schools probably like 5 or 6 times on that United by Fate run. And so like that record just like so sunk into my pores, and everything else has just been like, well, I have to get there, but yeah, I mean the records are. I agree with you. The records are great, and Run for Cover definitely did a good job documenting these, and then obviously getting them to a wider audience because yeah, they definitely completely fell by the wayside.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, like some of the bonus tracks they threw at the end of Petals are just some of the best Rival School songs. Period. So I mean that alone is enough of a value to for this reissue to make the list, and then Sound being the other one. Like anybody who was a big internet file sharer back in the day. This is a lot of those tracks that were floating around on like very distorted and fucked up sounding MP3s that are now like sound crystal clear and you can listen to on vinyl. So that's a win.
That is a beautiful win. I'm just waiting for the World's Fastest Car LP to get sounding better. It boggles my mind that we haven't seen a bootleg of that because like I don't know, it just seems, and I know some of those songs ended up being Rival School songs, but it's just funny because Walter's catalog has been so picked over in the best way possible. And it's like, when we're getting a Walter Sings the Hits, Gorilla Biscuits bootleg that existed because, Steve Aoki bootlegged it many years ago.
Right.
Why can't we have a World's Fastest Car one?
Yeah. I mean, he's got plenty of material that could be on Earth, but I'm glad these two are this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. The next thing that I want to mention is the Planes Mistaken for Stars record, Do You Still Love Me? And that it's not an easy listen, and it's tough to recommend it because here it is where for those that didn't pay attention or keep score, the vocalist of the band died tragically after a battle with cancer, if I'm not mistaken. And so they had these, demos and recordings that they were just sitting on for, the better part of 3 or 4 years. And they were able to, get it to a spot where everybody felt comfortable releasing it. And so this is the last document of his recorded output. Garrett O'Donnell's his name. And, but I mean, the record it's exactly what you want from Planes Mistaken for Stars. It's, dark, brooding, the sense of melody that exists underneath it all. I've just always loved this band. I had the pleasure of working with them when I was working at Century Media in the offshoot Abacus Recordings. We put out the record Mercy, and then now Death Wish is rightfully taking it over and re-released it and stuff like that. But yeah, just working with that band, they were like in the truest sense of the term, just like weirdos, where they were like, we're being in this band because we have no other choice. And to hear that kind of final document of a band was really special and cool. So got to give a shout out to that record.
Yeah, no, respect. I agree with all that. I always thought Planes Mistaken for Stars was like a band's band. Like you would see them, or like my first exposure, I think, was seeing them on tour with, who was it? Might have been Thursday or something close to 20 years ago. But like they were always like supporting the bands that I went to see, and like having that cosign is really what, made me check them out. And yeah, I know what you mean, like being kind of like the final documents before one of the members passed adds like a bit of gravity to it. But what a cool thing to leave behind and be able to have. I thought the same thing with that Cave In record a couple years ago. That was the last recording with Caleb on it. As it definitely adds a bit of, I don't know, some more gravity to it, and gives it I don't want to say haunting because that's not the right word, but like it just makes it a little more special to have.
Yeah. I think you're right about that description, because it does, like, for even if you don't know the context of it and you're just listening to it, there's an element that exists where it's like, music and all the art that people put out in the world, like it will exist longer than we are around as humans. And so there's always going to be that element that even if you don't know, it's just lingering in the background, and that's a special thing.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah. So what do you got in your list next?
Okay, we're going to stay in the reissue bucket here. I'm going to bundle these two together. You'll probably see why. This is probably the most pedestrian of all the picks here. So 94 was, I guess, a pretty big year for music, especially if you're of my age and generation. So you had big records that came out in 94, turning 30 this year, that got the reissue treatment. And Green Day Dookie and Weezer's Blue album both were, you know, insurmountable, big, impactful records on my life. And they got the reissue treatment in 2024. And I don't think I'm going to be putting anybody on to Weezer or Green Day with this one. But, you know, I will say, like, these reissues can sometimes come off as, like, you know, a cash grab, or they're just really kind of like dragging the lake for any bits of material that haven't been unearthed yet. But there's some really good stuff on these, man. Like Buried in the Back, some of the demo tracks. And what I'm saying goes for kind of both of these releases, where, you know, these are some of, like, the best, in my opinion, some of the best written, like, pop, rock, punk songs ever. And, you know, in listening to the demos that are available on these reissues, you can kind of hear how fully formed some of these songs were from the jump before they even got into a studio. And that, to me, is pretty remarkable, and almost even makes the songwriters behind them, like, even more prolific. You know, it's like, oh, these kids, like, had these ideas already back then. It's not like they got swept up by some A&R guy and thrown into a studio with a producer who, like, put it together. Like, these guys had the vision and had it from day one, and you can hear it in these demos that are part of these reissues. So, you know, if you haven't listened to these records in a while, this is a cool way to go back and experience them.
Yeah, that's cool. Honestly, I saw the deluxe reissues, and yeah, you're completely right. I mean, those records are still monumental. I mean, it's like my 13-year-old, I played him because he's just starting to, like, kind of experiment with his own taste in music. And so I showed him the Blue album, and he enjoyed it, that he ended up purchasing on vinyl. But it's so cool to hear those stirrings of ideas, especially where it's like, I know that you were probably the same way when you got into Green Day, where you realized that there were records before Dookie, and it was like, dude, you know, 1039 smooths out slappy hours. And then you're like, wait, they have some of the songs that are on Dookie on this. And, like, you're just like, this is so cool.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that just kind of, like, yeah, Dookie kind of, like, just expanded my world completely. Like, I learned about rock music and guitar music in general. I was fucking 10 years old when this thing came out, let alone punk rock, let alone subcultures and scenes tied to it. So yeah, I can't even describe how big that record was for me. And then, yeah, the Weezer shit, it's like Blue Record's timeless. Like, I'm not surprised that that your son's into it. Those songs sound just as good today as the day they came out. And there's a version on the Weezer reissue specifically. There's a demo of The World Has Turned and Left Me Here, where they play it, like, maybe 15% slower, and it creates such a cool, like, dreamy, laid back vibe to it that it's like a completely different take on a song that you probably loved for the last 30 years. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. But yeah, those are, and to your point, it's important to call those things out, like the uniqueness of the re-releases are important for a lot of reasons, but when you're actually able to find value out of it, as opposed to just like a cheesy cash grab where it's like, oh dude, we found this horrific, you know, demo basement tape. Like, it's like, no, these ones feel not only worth it and legitimate, but, like, are important for people like you and I who have listened to the record, you know, more than we probably should have. Yeah,
totally. But if I can't imagine anybody has never heard these bands, but it's definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check out
the yeah, I know. Yeah, guys, check. There's this little band called Green Day, you know. Well, fun fact: the drummer Trey Cool's I don't know, son or daughter goes to my son's school, so I've seen Trey Cool in the parking lot before to be like, oh, what's up there, Trey Cool?
No shit, is he cool? Have you said something to him?
Yeah, I've bit my tongue because there has been times where I could have said something, but I'm like, I don't want to punish him too much. But yeah, there's still at least another year where my kid is at the same school, so you know, I'll bide my time, but I'll find a spot.
Yeah, when the time is right at the next PTA event, you can break the ice.
Exactly. I'll be like, hey, was just talking about Dookie with a friend on a podcast.
That shit's good, man.
Yeah, it's really good. The next record on my list is a band that's existed for a while, but the band is called New Moon. The record is called Temporary Light. Yeah, I was familiar only by obviously a friend of the show, top year-end guest of the Best of 2024 and every other year prior. Jeremy Bolm put out a 7-inch on his label called Secret Voice Records. They're, I want to say, either Swedish or Belgium, but they do the whole shoegaze atmospheric pop thing. And I thought the band was cool. That EP, or the 2 or 3 song 7-inch that Jeremy put out was cool. But this record, they've just, continued to be a band, touring occasionally and just doing their thing. This record came out, and truthfully, it just kind of came out of nowhere, for me. And it's beautiful. It's, like I said, if you like any of those genres, you will absolutely love this. It just makes you feel like you're floating in the clouds in the best way possible. But yeah, it's a beautiful record. There isn't anything that really makes them like distinctively different from a lot of other bands, but there's just that like intangible thing that, keeps you coming back to a record, and you're like, this isn't exactly like the most unique thing I've ever heard, but it's still goddamn beautiful. I just keep revisiting it. So shout out to New Moon and their Temporary Light record.
Oh, awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of stuff that I like. Speaking of Jeremy, I wanted to call something out from the main episode. So Jeremy is like the sweetest guy of all time, like inarguably, right? And he said something.
Yep.
I forget what he was talking about. I think it was like Jelly Roll being on an Epitaph artist site or song or something, and he described it as promote the marketing as being fist fucked into his timeline. And I have like pretty thick skin, and I felt like I was like clutching my pearls. I was like, Jeremy, this language. But
I love that.
Yeah, it was awesome. I actually laughed out loud when I heard that, and I was like, oh, I gotta bring that up on the show.
Absolutely. That's very good. I mean, and that was truthfully probably around the Bill Murray record that I picked out that I knew I was going to get just mountains of crap for, but it's fine. It's fine. These are records that you enjoy. So yeah, hey, that's good. I like that call out.
That's what this is all about. But yeah, old Jeremy Fistfuck Bohm over there.
That's beautiful. What's next on your list?
All right, let's see. I think that's going to do it for the reissues. Going to go into a category that I always liked a lot, live records. Some of my favorite records ever are live. I think when they're done right, they can really kind of capture a band at their best and kind of, I don't know, like, before you could like see music on YouTube and see shows on YouTube, like, I don't know, live records were kind of like a cool peek into like what a show might be like. So I think they always kind of stuck out to me for that reason. So last year, I have 2. The first one is from Nothing, called Auditory Trauma, that known associate of mine, Closed Casket Activities, released. And it's kind of all those things, man. Like, Nothing is a band that I've been following pretty much from the beginning, just shortly before their first LP came out. I've seen them play countless times around Brooklyn and the city in New York. And it's just been cool following their evolution. And I think right now they are the best live that they've ever been. And I think this record does a cool job of capturing that. And Closed Casket obviously made it look amazing. I don't know what the materials they used are to like make the cover, but it's this kind of like, I don't know, like poly plastic transparent thing. It looks awesome. It sounds awesome. And I think it's really capturing a band at their best right now live.
I love that. I love that pick. And I'm the same way, because I've celebrate the band's whole catalog and love them. And think Nicky is obviously the most, charismatic madman that exists right now. If you ever get a chance to speak to him, like, you'll be on a ride for about 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, they did such a cool job of what could ostensibly just be, whatever, a throwaway vinyl release. And I don't mean that in a super negative sense, but sometimes like live records just come out and you're like, okay, that's cool. I'll listen to it once and that's kind of it. But this definitely feels different.
Yeah, or like live records, I've learned like I had my fucking dream shattered. Where like I learned some live records like aren't just from the soundboard at the show. Like they're like, oh no, we recorded it live in the studio. I'm like, well, that's not the same. Like,
right.
But this one's from a real gig. So this is the real thing, genuine article, and yeah, it rules. I love Nothing. I love the live record, and I love Closed Casket.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good pick. The was there another live record that you wanted to shout out right now, or you wanted to?
Oh yeah,
we can transfer it to me if you'd like.
Yeah, I might as well just knock it out. This one will be quick. Back in the Pedestrian Lane. Third Eye Blind put out a live record last year, which same deal, man. Like I've gone to a couple Third Eye Blind shows and they're really fun. It's just like a great band to see outdoors in the summer. And this live record captured exactly that. And what this live record did too was like, obviously I love the self-titled. I like a lot of Blue. I like a lot of, I forget the name, Out of the Vein. The one came after it. But this one kind of made me sold me on some songs and material that I just never bothered checking out later in their catalog. And there's like 2 or 3 songs on here. I'm like, oh shit, these are great songs. And it made me go back and visit the studio version on albums that, that may have missed me. But yeah, just another good example of being able to kind of capture the vibe right. And it's a really fun listen. And again, a cool way to revisit songs that you've probably heard 1,000 times in like a refreshing new way.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I didn't even know that came out. That's cool. I'll definitely have to listen to that because live. Yeah, to your point, when you first recognize that a live record isn't what people described or what it was advertised to be, it's just like, oh, really? Like that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I felt like swindled. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I can't. But the I think what started the love affair with the live record was the California Takeover, the Strife Snapcase Earth Crisis live record. And that one for sure is live because you can just hear the crowd. And that kind of just supports what I was saying earlier. Like before I could see what a fucking Earth Crisis show looked like I just imagined it based on the strength of that live recording.
Oh yeah. You're like, I want to be in that room right now. Yeah.
Where was that? You probably know. Where was that recorded? That was cool. LA somewhere, right?
It was, yeah. It was at the Whiskey. It was like 90. I know it was like literally 6 to 7 months before I really personally started to go to shows or like had more existing knowledge to be able to attend that. But I was at the Whiskey.
Oh, cool.
One of my favorite pieces of feedback of this show is when I introduce a record or a company or a band to a person who has never heard it before. And that is what I continually hear about the partnership that I have with evilgreed.net. They are an amazing web store solution provider for bands and record labels of all shapes and sizes, but they have a very specific point of view in regards to the type of bands and record labels that they're working with, because they don't just blow open the doors for everybody. They work with bands like 200 Stab Wounds, Jesus Piece, or they work with labels like Flat Spot and Triple B Records. If you are into what I like to define as, artistic punk hardcore stuff, they are absolutely the company that you need to point your web browser towards. They're based in Berlin, Germany, but they ship worldwide, and the shipping rates are very advantageous for us right now in the States because our dollar is strong, I think. I don't know. I'm not an economics major, but knowing that you can ship something for relatively cheap across the world is awesome. So go to evilgreed.net, point your mouse or cursor wherever, and you will be able to find something. I can guarantee it. Bands that we're talking about on this very episode have stores on this website. So go shop there and you will thank me later. I assure you that. So evilgreed.net, thank you for your continued support.
My next record is a band that I got clued into. I mentioned the Decibel year-end list. I always love they're bringing records to me that I wouldn't like. I can read the description and I know immediately if it's for me or not. But there's a band that got clued into. Probably going to butcher the band's name, but the band's called Dodsrit. It's like Dodsrit. The record is called Nocturnal Will. apparently they've been a band for a while. They've been kicking around. I mean, not for a tremendously long period of time, but it is such a great combination of like black metal, D beat, like anything heavy they kind of throw at you. And I love when bands do that. Like, a couple years ago, that band Antichrist Siege Machine got put on my radar. And that's exactly like, I basically feel like, this band or Antichrist Siege Machine are what Nails would be if they really had no like hardcore kid influence. Mm-hmm. Not, disparaging what Todd Jones does, because I like Nails as well. But this just feels so pulled from the cloth of being like, oh yeah, we're like punk kids, and then we got into metal, and like hardcore's cool, but those are our primary influences. So yeah, I love the Dodd Strit record at Nocturnal Will, and that's for anybody that likes anything heavy, I would very much recommend that.
Cool. You'll have to like text me the band name so I can check that out. I'm not even going to try to transcribe that.
No. Yeah. And I think, again, I think they're from a Scandinavian country. I can't remember, which one in particular, but, they've put out more than just this record. Like, this is their debut LP. So, that was a very good thing. I'll tack one more on that is not related at all, but this is just a kind of a demo that I wanted to call out. I think the band is from Maine, and, I love the fact that I can still personally like, not only find physical zines, but then also like read reviews in zines and be like, oh, this sounds cool, I'm going to check this out. So the band is called Corrective Measure. And I want to say they're from Maine. I want to say, I mean, when I say that they're small, it's like, I'm literally looking at their Spotify right now and they have like 267 monthly listeners. So they definitely aren't a hype hardcore band at all. But, they're from Maine, but just it seems like they started in the mid 10s, I guess, but then didn't put anything out for many years. But this thing came out, and it's by the numbers hardcore, but just done so damn well that it's like I 30 seconds into the first song, I was like, oh, perfect. Way to go, guys. This is what I like. This is what I like to listen to in hardcore. So, the Corrective Measures, I mean, it's technically not a demo. It's called, what is it called? It's called Not For You, Not For Anyone. But I'm just calling it their demo because I think that's what it was listed as in the zine that I read. But, anyways, shout out to zines, shout out to demos still existing because, Lord knows us old men need to, still feel like we're, useful in finding demos.
Yeah. That's analog, baby. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you have next on your list there?
Next one I got is what I think might end up being the last LP from the band Mets on Sub Pop, called Up on Gravity Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've been a fan of this band. I think the second LP is kind of where I got in, and I don't know, I've just always liked this band. Like, just very kind of cool noise rock. Having the Sub Pop cosign definitely kind of adds to the authenticity of it, I think. But they've been such a good band for such a long time, and I think I read recently that, I don't know if they're breaking up or doing a hiatus or what, but they said their last tour was going to be the last for the foreseeable future. So I think that gave a little more empathy to this LP. And the record itself is really good, but the last track on it, called Light Your Way Home, is probably one of the best songs that Mets has, and it's the biggest departure. It's a little slower, it's a little dreamier. It's got some female vocals on it for what I believe is the first time. And if that ends up being the last Mets song that we get, it's a really well done, beautiful send off to a great band with a great career.
That's awesome. The band has always been cool every time I've listened to them, but I really need to roll up my sleeves and just be like, I need to like actually get into them, because I know I like them, but I just need to become more familiar with their catalog. And like this, anytime a band is like ending, that, sometimes it's a bummer, but then it's also being like, oh, okay, now I don't have to keep up with any new releases. I can just be like, all right, I'm coming in fresh and going to find what I like from here.
Yeah, I think like probably the most obvious reference would be like drive like Jehu or some kind of like noise rock like that. But I'm always big into like dissonant guitar sounds, through more of like a heavy lens. And that's kind of how I went into this band. And I think that's kind of what won me over. Like some of it sounded like, oh, like some of these could be like Dead Guy riffs, just a little more kind of like focused and less maniacal and delivered in a more, traditional rock way. So if you like dissonant, noisy rock of like any kind, there's probably something you'll like on here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, I'm rounding off. Let's see. I've got 3 more picks here. One of them, I obviously won't do them in a row, but one of them is a band called Outlander. They're from the UK. They put this. Well, yeah, this LP is called Acts of Harm. They definitely. We were talking about Nothing a few minutes ago. They absolutely live in that world. They're a little more expansive. Like I would maybe compare them to a band like Duster, where it's, sort of slowcore adjacent, where they've got very long songs. I think this full length is like 6 songs. So, and it's like 50 minutes long. So, what you're getting into. But they put out this LP on Church Road Records, which is a label I definitely pay attention to most of the stuff they put out. But yeah, if you like anything, whatever post metal, whatever label you want to call it, like shoegaze adjacent, they definitely do a really, really good job. And so, I love the band. And I think if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be signing to a new label soon. That's a little bit larger, and they're just kind of making moves over in the UK. So hopefully people start to hear about them. But yeah, their band's called Outlander and the record's called Acts of Harm.
Right on. Very cool. So you said you had 3 more left?
I do. That's why I wanted to, if you don't have that many, that's totally fine. But
no, I can keep.
Let me know what you got.
Yeah, I can keep going. I'm gonna have to dip back to the beatdown bucket that I promised was over, but I got some more.
No, the fact that you labeled it Brian's Beatdown Corner is already, it's amazing. It's perfect.
All right. Well, so we're gonna do another detour back into the Beatdown Corner. Missing Links LP from this year. I think it was called, I better get this right, Watch Me Bleed. Yes, Watch Me Bleed. I almost said Let Me Bleed. But yeah, the Missing Link LP, Watch Me Bleed, came out on Triple B. I mean, I love heavy hardcore, though, that's no doubt about it. And like, this is just, when it's done right, it's so sick. And this is like such a great example of that. Like, the people in this band are people that like I've known for like almost my entire life of playing heavy music at all. And I just love seeing them win, like I love seeing them on every fest and every show and having a release on Triple B. And we just played our holiday benefit show with these guys. And it's heavy music done right. And when it's done right, it's like the best shit ever. And it's such a fun, easy listen, great gym record, all that stuff. Missing Link.
Yeah, I love that record. It's and it's interesting because like you really start to pick your flavors of hardcore, and you get to be more discriminate as you get older, where you're just like, oh, this isn't for me. Like, no shots against a band like Tsunami. Like Tsunami, I love what they do. The members of the band are absolutely great, but I just never listen to them. It's like not my style of hardcore, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I get why it's popular. Like, whereas like there's other bands where I'm like, I don't understand. I don't like it, and I don't understand why it's popular, which, we don't need a name right now, but, but Missing Link is like, Missing Link, I get why they're popular, and I also like them, which is like, but 2 things I love when it hits both cylinders, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like heavy music written by people you can tell like study the science of writing heavy music, if that makes sense. And I just got to put a little spotlight on one of their guitar players, Chris McCarthy, plays in Internal Bleeding now. Like, me and Chris are like 2 of the only people in our general area in high school that listen to fucking anything heavy. So we've kind of just like always been in each other's circle. And it's just cool that we're still doing it on different levels and able to play shows together. And this kid, like, if he could have like bought stock in Dying Fetus like 15 to 20 years ago, he would be a millionaire today. Like he was, him and his first, or one of his first bands, Without Remorse, those guys were always riding for Dying Fetus when nobody had ever heard of that shit, myself included. And he was like ground floor on that. And it's cool kind of seeing like heavy music catching up with like their taste, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I love that. When just think if there was that concept of, you know, being able to buy stock in a band early and then like just have it be worth something. I mean, I guess that's, you know, we could maybe just invent some, you know, band music industry cryptocurrency right now.
That's different.
But, yeah, I love that
podcast. Yeah.
That is. My second to last pick is a split with that got put out on New Morality Zine, the Downward Trauma Ray split. And I love both bands. Downward is from, I think they're from Oklahoma City, if I'm not mistaken, and Trauma Ray is from Houston. But they do the whole, you know, again, referencing Nothing, you know, Were, all of those bands where it's just like, you know, heavy shoegaze influenced stuff being, you know, trying to just rip off Hum, which all of those things I'm like, sign me up for. I'm interested. But it's cool. I really still love the idea of doing splits to be able to introduce bands to, you know, fans of other bands and what have you. And I just thought like this was a perfect split because it was both bands complementing each other, but they're both doing their own unique thing. But clearly you would find value if you just liked one of the bands and then be like, oh, this is who they're friends with. And this is why we brought them on this split or whatever. Packaging's cool. Like all of it just checks out. So, and they're it's 2 songs a piece from each band, and they're both like not on any other releases. And so I like it when bands also are just like, oh yeah, this is just going to be a split and here's new songs. So here you go.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you're talking to a guy that did 3 split 7 inches with the same band. So anybody
right?
else,
You're like, we got this.
I got it. Yeah.
That's amazing. What else you got on yours?
Okay, I got 2 more. One is Vomit Forth, Terrified of God. Very scary, hardcore death metal. Same deal where like I've kind of just been like following the people in this band. I think there was members of Sanction in it at one point. But anyway, it's kind of like the same cohort of people, or from the same pool. So I've been following this band for a while. I love their last LP, Seething Malevolence. The production of that was so fucking grimy, like on purpose, and it just hit me in such a cool way. This new LP, the production is a lot more, I guess we'll call it pro, for lack of a better term. But it suits the songs because the songs are also, the songwriting has elevated. What I've always liked about Vomit Forth is with music like this, like every song needs to have like the part or like a memorable part so that it stands out. Like a lot of like the really extreme heavy death metal stuff, like without that in the songwriting, it can all blend together. And Vomit Forth has always, every song has had like the part, and this new record is no different. I think they elevated the songwriting and are delivering it with a production that really suits it.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah. This band's totally, I agree. Like they're super cool. Definitely, are bringing something that is tried and true, but also like you can tell is just uniquely them as well. Like
and they're showing growth.
Anytime you find those bands, it's always exciting.
Yeah. And like
totally.
They're showing like growth within their scope without, oh, now we have some clean soaring vocal or something, but like, yeah, it's cool. I like seeing them grow. I like seeing them win, and excited to see what they do the rest of it or in 2025.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, my last pick and shout out is a band called Cold God. I'll Drown on This Earth. And as you can probably see with the picks on this particular list, that if you are playing something that is shoegaze heavy, atmospheric, like I'm probably listening and I probably will like it. But Cold God, based out of LA, put out this LP on Dias Records that put out like the new High Vis and a bunch of other cool stuff this year.
Sure.
But this is their second LP, and it's all from this kid named Matthew Wainwright. And I mean, he has a band that, you know, backs him up and everything like that, but it's definitely, you know, his vision, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But what makes this thing compelling for me is that he really, like, a lot of shoegaze stuff, like, you know, vocals are you know, important, but they're not, you know, they're kind of another instrument, you know, another layer. Whereas I think the way that he thinks about it is that the vocals are meant to be, like, you know, memorable and catchy. And I think that that's what really shines through on this record for me. That kind of sets it apart from other bands of the genre, is that he puts a lot of focus on making sure that this chorus is, you know, going to stick in your head long after you've stopped listening, which I think is a cool, it's a feature, not a bug on this particular band. So Cold God, I'll drown on this earth. And it bums me out because I have not seen them live yet, but I look forward to seeing them at a gig when they play in the near future.
Oh, God spelled GAWD.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, GAWD. Yeah,
yes, I have heard this. Like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. It's and that I think they're trying to do more next year and tour more. So I think they definitely could get into that space where they start to play some of the, you know, larger hardcore festivals. Because I mean, even though they're not like necessarily hardcore kids, like they are, you know, they're within the scene. So I could easily see them, you know, getting a nod from, you know, a Sound and Fury or whatever. Definitely not like a This Is Hardcore FYA, but
I know what you mean, like, you know,
something that
Fest or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, shout out to Cold God, and that rounds out my list. But I would love to hear your last pick for this.
Sure thing.
Next cut of stuff.
Yeah. So last one here is going to be a record that came out very early in 2024. So, you know, sometimes those could feel like they came out more than a year ago. But it's a solo record from Jay Mascis called What Do We Do Now? Anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Dinosaur Jr. fan. I love Jay's solo stuff almost as much. I mean, he since 2011, I think, is when he put out his first solo record that I really enjoyed, and like they've all been good and all worth a listen. And New One's no exception. It sounds like familiar, you know, like, you know what Jay's songs sound like, you know what Dino sounds like. I think on this one he's got more songs with a full band than not, which is some growth. Typically his solo records were just him and a guitar. But I don't know, something about new material from Jay is just comforting and still refreshing without feeling tired. So I just want to shine some light on this one because, again, it came out super early in the year, so it might be overlooked by the time you get to the end of year lists, but it's just as strong as the rest of his catalog and worth a shot.
Yeah, I love this record's cool, and I appreciate you putting it on here because it's even for nerdy catalogers like you and I that are, you know, putting stuff in playlists or notes on our phone or whatever. There are just some records where you're like, oh man, did this came out this year? And then you have to do research and be like, all right, did it come out? Oh, it came out in January or whatever. And sometimes you just need those reminders of being like, oh yeah, because this existed for 11 months in my life, like it doesn't make it any less valuable. It just is, you know, maybe I'm listening to it less, but it's still good.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That brings up a good point. I was going to ask, like, you know, you guys do these very detailed end of year lists every year. Like, do you have any like best practices of how to keep track of shit throughout the year? Because I know what I do, and it's not very scientific. Like, when I dig a record, I just throw it on a note in my iPhone. But I'm curious, like, you guys are kind of like, to me, like the pros of this type of indexing. So is there a better way?
I appreciate that. I will take the compliment. I know Joey and Jeremy have I wouldn't say slightly different ways, but I think we put, I mean, I know for myself, I'll speak, like when a record comes out, I put it in a playlist that I'm just, you know, basically continually updating throughout the year with records that I'm like, okay, this is good. I actually nerdily listen to all of those like on plane flights. So I had, make sure that the records are downloaded for offline listening. So I listen to them again to make sure they've kind of like made the cut, so to speak. And then if a record kind of falls, I'm like, it's just okay. I maybe leave it in there, but I'm like, I know this isn't going to make my list, but it's still good. Just doesn't kind of, bubble up to the top 10. And then once I have that list that I've, kind of curated throughout the year, then that's when I do a deeper dive and start to look at like, okay, what have I actually, listened to the most? And, how has my music taste either not changed per se, but just evolved to where it's like I was more listening off of vibes than, actual listening hours or whatever. So yeah, I toss it in the list first, constantly kind of like prune it. I find that like the actual list form, like if I'm putting things in, a Word document or, to your point, like a notes app, I find that that's more difficult for me to wrap my head around. Like I actually have to listen to the music alongside of it. So that's my process, as it were. Definitely not. I appreciate you calling it scientific, but there's still whatever works for an individual is what I recommend.
Yeah. I guess, maybe this is a good reminder for everybody listening to start your 2025 list, at the beginning of the year.
Exactly. And I also find it helpful too when bands are releasing singles that I tend to not immediately throw them. Like, if it's a band that I know, like, for example, love Bon Iver, love everything that he does. And once I found out this was an EP, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put it in my list, but like clearly it's not going to make anything. But the moment that he released the first single, I just tossed it in my list. And then that way I knew once it like formally came out as far as, being released or what have you, it reminds me to put the whole EP in the list. So it's kind of, I have redundancies to make sure I'm like capturing the music that I think I'll like.
Yeah, that's pretty scientific.
Yes, I appreciate that. Well, Brian, we have done it, and I very much appreciate you letting me, poke around your brain with the music that you like throughout the year. Because, it takes a special sort of person to care this much, and you're that sort of person, Brian.
Yeah, hey, like I said, it's an honor to be on here. I listen to this. I look forward to your guys' end of year episode every year. So getting to be part of it in any way is flattering. So thank you. Thank Jeremy. Thank Joey. You guys are the best.
There we go. Shout out to Brian for coming on the show. I love his band. I love him as a human being, and I love to talk music because, as you could probably hear throughout the episode, we learn from each other and we expose each other to music that we may have never heard of, or we've listened to and been like, you know what? I need to give it a second chance, because that is why you trust friends and you trust friends' music tastes. So shout out to Brian. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Next week, I have a little bit of a curveball, but one that hopefully you'll be able to follow along. Kevin Palmer is the vocalist and guitarist from a band called Trust Company. This is a really deep cut for those of you that were existing in the early 2000s. They are a nu metal band, and I know that has received some sort of renaissance as of late, but Trust Company is awesome. I loved this band, and they released an LP called The Lonely Position of Neutral. I remember when this came out, and it was definitely marketed alongside all of these sort of, third-rate nu metal bands, bands I'm not going to, besmirch by talking about them in a negative light here, but it just seemed like a very average release. But in listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really good. There's a keen sense of melody and something that's different than a lot of the other bands that they were, either touring with or marketed alongside of. And this band has always cluttered around or just been in my brain. And I have always wanted to speak to somebody in the band because I felt like there was some connection to punk and hardcore. Like these dudes had been exposed in some capacity to it. And turns out I was right in so many different ways. And, this is a cool conversation because this is a band that, has received millions and millions of streams, and records have gone, I think their record has gone gold, and they've definitely experienced a lot within the music industry, but they come from very, very humble beginnings, all in the DIY space. So anyways, Kevin Palmer, the guitarist and vocalist of Trust Company, is on next week. And for those of you that you recognize those words, you're stoked. And even if you don't recognize those words, I promise the conversation is worth your time. So until next week, please be safe, everybody, and happy 2025.